Good evening, my friends. It's an honor to stand before you today, to share this space, this moment, and this journey of discovery. Tonight, we're going to explore a question that has echoed through the ages, a question that sits at the heart of every human experience. Who are you? Not the name on your driver's license, not your job title, not the roles you play in your family or community. Who are you, really? What is the truth of your being? I'm here to tell you that the answer to this question is more profound, more beautiful, and more empowering than you might imagine. And to uncover it, we're going to weave together stories, real life stories from my own journey and from others who have touched my heart. Stories that reveal the truth of who we all are. You see, I believe that you are not just a human being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You are a piece of the divine, a spark of the infinite source that created everything. And the journey of discovering who you are is about peeling back the layers of fear, doubt, and conditioning to reveal the truth that has always been there. As I've said many times, you don't get what you want. You get what you are. So, let's dive into this truth together, through stories, reflections, and insights that I hope will light up your soul as they have mine. The orphanage, a boy named Wayne, let me start with a story from my own life, one that shaped me in ways I couldn't understand until much later. I was born in Detroit, Michigan in 1940, to a mother who loved me fiercely and a father who walked away when I was just a toddler. My early years were spent in foster homes and orphanages because, frankly, there wasn't enough money to go around. My mother was doing her best, raising 3 boys on her own, but the weight of poverty was heavy. By the time I was 10, I had lived in a series of homes, including an orphanage on the east side of Detroit. Now, you might think that sounds like a rough start, and in many ways it was. But here's the thing. Those years taught me something profound about who I am. In that orphanage, I learned resilience. I learned that no matter where you are, no matter how little you have, there's a spark inside you that no one can take away. I remember sitting on the steps of that orphanage, a skinny kid with big dreams, watching the world go by. I'd tell myself, Wayne, you're going to do something big someday. You're going to make a difference. I didn't know how, and I certainly didn't have a roadmap, but I felt it. That feeling, that inner knowing, was my first glimpse of the truth. I wasn't just an orphan. I was a being with a purpose, connected to something greater. Years later, when I wrote my first book, Your Erroneous Zones, I realized that those early struggles weren't obstacles, they were gifts. They revealed my strength, my independence, and my ability to choose how I respond to life's challenges. As I often say, circumstances do not make a man, they reveal him. That orphanage didn't define me. It showed me who I was capable of becoming. So I ask you, what circumstances in your life have revealed you? Maybe it was a loss, a failure, a moment when everything seemed to fall apart. Those moments aren't here to break you. They're here to show you the truth of your strength, your resilience, and your divine nature. The power of forgiveness. A father's grave, let's talk about forgiveness. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that forgiveness is the key to unlocking the truth of who you are. For years, I carried a heavy burden of anger toward my father, the man who left my mother and me. I never met him, but I hated him. I blamed him for the poverty, the foster homes, the pain of my childhood. That anger was like a virus in my mind, poisoning my thoughts and holding me back. In 1974, I was 34 years old, a successful professor and therapist, but I was miserable. I was drinking too much, eating poorly, and my relationships were a mess. I was carrying this rage toward a man I'd never known, and it was eating me alive. Then, through a series of what I can only call mystical events, I found myself standing at my father's grave in Biloxi, Mississippi. I had driven across the country, guided by an inner pull I couldn't explain. When I got to that cemetery, I stood over his headstone, and all the anger I'd carried for years came pouring out. I yelled, I cried, I cursed him for everything I thought he'd done to me. And then something shifted. In that moment I realized that my anger wasn't hurting him. He was gone, it was hurting me. I was the one carrying this burden, letting it define me. So I made a choice. I forgave him. I didn't forgive him for his sake. I forgave him for mine. I stood there and said, I forgive you, Dad. I let you go. And in that moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was as if I'd set myself free. I realized that forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's actions. It's about releasing the thoughts of resentment, anger, and hatred that disempower you. As I've written, forgiving others is essential for spiritual growth. Your experience of someone who has hurt you, while painful, is now nothing more than a thought or feeling that you carry around. That day at my father's grave, I discovered a truth about who I am. I am not my anger. I am not my past. I am a being capable of love, compassion, and freedom. And when I let go of that anger, I opened the door to a new life. My writing took off, my relationships improved, and I began to live from a place of peace. Who are you holding on to with anger or resentment? Who do you need to forgive to set yourself free? The truth is, when you forgive, you're not just releasing them. You're revealing the real you, the you that is connected to love, to God, to the infinite source. The girl who saw heaven let me share another story, one that touched me deeply and speaks to the truth of who we are. A few years ago, I received a letter from a woman named Sarah, who attended one of my talks. She shared a story about her daughter, Emily, who was just 4 years old at the time. Emily had been diagnosed with a rare illness, and the doctors weren't sure she'd make it. Sarah was devastated, consumed by fear and grief. One night, as Sarah sat by Emily's hospital bed, holding her tiny hand, Emily woke up and looked at her mother with the clearest, brightest eyes. She said, "Mommy, don't be sad. I saw heaven last night, and it's so beautiful. There were people there who love me, and they told me I'm part of something big, like a big, shiny light. I'm not scared, Mommy, because I know who I am." Sarah was stunned. Her 4-year-old daughter, facing a life-threatening illness, was speaking with a wisdom that seemed to come from somewhere beyond this world. Emily went on to recover, defying the odds, and Sarah said that moment changed her forever. She realized that her daughter wasn't just a little girl. She was a spiritual being, connected to a divine source that was guiding her, even in her darkest moments. I included stories like Emily's in my book Memories of Heaven, because they remind us of a profound truth. Children often come into this world with a direct line to the divine. They haven't yet been conditioned to believe in their limitations. They know, on some level, that they are eternal beings, part of the infinite source. As I've said, we are not human beings in search of a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings immersed in a human experience. Emily's story reminds us that the truth of who you are is not bound by your physical body, your circumstances, or even your fears. You are a spark of the divine, a piece of the infinite light that Emily saw in her vision. And when you tap into that truth, you can face anything with courage and peace. The man who found his purpose, let's talk about purpose, because discovering who you are is deeply tied to living your purpose. I once met a man named David at one of my seminars. David was in his 50s, a successful lawyer with a big house, a fancy car, and all the trappings of what society calls success. But he was miserable. He told me, "Wayne, I've spent my whole life chasing money, status, and approval, but I feel empty. I don't know who I am anymore. I asked David a simple question. What would you do if you had all the time and money in the world? He thought for a moment and said, I'd teach kids. I love kids. I'd open a community center where kids could come after school, learn, play, and feel safe. His eyes lit up as he spoke, and I could see the passion in him. I said, David, that's your purpose calling you. That's who you are. A teacher, a guide, a light for those kids. Over the next few years, David made a bold move. He left his law practice, sold his big house, and opened a small community center in his hometown. He started teaching kids, mentoring them, and giving them a safe space to grow. He wrote to me a year later and said, Wayne, I've never been happier. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm living who I really am. David's story is a reminder of what I've always taught. There is no scarcity of opportunity to make a living at what you love. There's only scarcity of resolve to make it happen. When you align with your purpose, you align with the truth of who you are. You don't have to chase success. It flows to you when you're living from your authentic self. So, I ask you, what's your purpose? What makes your heart sing? That's a clue to who you are. Don't let fear or doubt hold you back. As I've said, go for it now. The future is promised to no one. The power of intention. A mother's miracle. Let's talk about intention, because who you are is deeply connected to what you intend. I've always believed that intention is not just a goal or a desire. It's a force in the universe, an invisible field of energy that you can tap into. Let me share a story that illustrates this beautifully. In 2007, I was speaking at a conference in London when a woman named Maria approached me. She was a single mother of two, struggling to make ends meet. Her youngest son, Liam, had been born with a heart condition, and the doctors said he'd need surgery that Maria couldn't afford. She was terrified, but she told me she'd been reading my book, The Power of Intention, and decided to try something different. Maria said, Dr. Dyer, I started meditating every morning, focusing on the intention that Liam would be healed. I didn't know how it would happen, but I believed it was possible. I imagined him running and playing, healthy and strong. I used the words I am to affirm it. I am grateful for Liam's health. I am connected to the source that makes all things possible. One day, Maria received a call from a local charity that had heard about Liam's condition. They offered to cover the cost of his surgery. The operation was a success, and Liam is now a healthy, active teenager. Maria told me, I learned that when I aligned my thoughts with love and possibility, miracles happened. I realized that who I am is someone who can co-create with the universe. Maria's story is a testament to what I've taught for years. Our intention creates our reality. When you set an intention from a place of love, faith, and connection to the divine, you tap into the truth of who you are, a co-creator with the source. You don't have to know how your dreams will come true. You just have to believe they will. What intention are you holding in your heart right now? Is it rooted in fear or love? The truth of who you are is revealed when you choose love, when you trust in the infinite possibilities of the universe. The lesson of Michael Jackson, a heart as big as the sky. Let me share a story that's very close to my heart, about a man who embodied the truth of who we all are at our core. In 1991, I had the privilege of spending 5 days with Michael Jackson at his Neverland Ranch. My children and I were invited to stay with him, and I'll never forget the experience. Michael called me because he was intrigued by my book, Real Magic, which is about creating miracles in everyday life. He wanted to talk about what real magic meant to me, but the truth is, Michael already had the magic. He was one of the most spiritual people I've ever met. His entire ranch was designed for children, especially those who were sick or disadvantaged. The theater, the amusement park, everything was set up so that kids in hospital beds or on crutches could experience joy. Michael was responsible for cutting world hunger in half in the 1980s and 1990s through his work with We Are the World. And he took no money for it. He lived to give, to create, to bring light to others. One evening, as we sat talking, Michael said to me, "Wayne, I just want to make people happy. I want them to feel loved." I looked at him and said, "Michael, you already do that. Your music, your heart, it's all love." He smiled, but there was a sadness in his eyes, because he lived a tortured life, accused of things that went against the purity of his heart. Michael's story reminds us that who you are is not defined by what others say about you. As I've said, your reputation is in the hands of others. The only thing you can control is your character. Michael's character was love, generosity, and a commitment to making the world better. That's who he was, and that's who we all are when we strip away the judgments and fears. What would it look like for you to live from that place of love and generosity? To give without expecting anything in return. That's where the truth of who you are shines brightest. The woman who changed her thoughts. Let's talk about the power of your thoughts, because who you are is shaped by the way you think. I've always said, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Let me share a story about a woman named Linda, who came to one of my workshops in Maui. Linda was in her 60s, recently widowed and struggling with depression. She told me, "Wayne, I feel like my life is over. I don't know who I am without my husband." I asked her to try an experiment for the next 30 days. Every morning she was to wake up and say, "I am enough. I am worthy. I am connected to the divine." I also asked her to keep a journal of every positive thing she noticed in her day, no matter how small. A month later, Linda wrote to me. She said, "At first, I didn't believe those affirmations, but I kept saying them, and slowly I started to feel different. I noticed the beauty of the sunrise, the kindness of a stranger, the joy of a good cup of coffee. I realized that my thoughts were creating my reality. I'm not just a widow. I'm a woman with a purpose, a spark of God inside me." Linda's story is a powerful reminder that you are not your circumstances. You are not your past. You are the thoughts you choose to think, the beliefs you choose to hold. When you shift your thoughts to align with love, abundance, and possibility, you reveal the truth of who you are, a divine being capable of creating miracles. What thoughts are you holding onto that no longer serve you? What would happen if you chose to think, "I am enough," or "I am worthy"? Try it for a week and see how your world changes. The childlike spirit. Recapturing wonder, one of the most beautiful truths about who you are is that you have a childlike spirit within you. As I've said, to be more childlike, you don't have to give up being an adult. The fully integrated person is capable of being both an adult and a child simultaneously. Let me tell you a story about a man named Tom, who reminded me of this truth. Tom was a CEO, always serious, always stressed. He came to one of my retreats, skeptical but curious. During a meditation session, I asked everyone to close their eyes and imagine themselves as children, free and full of wonder. Afterward, Tom shared that he'd had a vision of himself at 6 years old, running through a field, laughing without a care in the world. He said, "I haven't felt that kind of joy in decades. I forgot that part of me even existed." Over the course of the retreat, Tom began to reconnect with that childlike spirit. He laughed more, danced during our group activities, and even painted a picture during an art session, something he hadn't done since he was a kid. By the end of the retreat, he told me, "Wayne, I realized that who I am isn't just a CEO. I'm someone who loves to create, to play, to feel alive." Tom's story is a reminder that the truth of who you are, includes that childlike sense of wonder, curiosity, and joy. It's never gone, it's just waiting for you to rediscover it. What would it look like to let that part of you come out to play, to approach life with wide-eyed excitement as if everything is a miracle? The universal connection. We are one as we near the end of this journey together. Let's talk about the ultimate truth of who you are. You are connected to everything and everyone. As I've said, loving people live in a loving world. Hostile people live in a hostile world. Same world. Your perception shapes your reality, but at the core we are all one, part of the same divine source. I'll never forget a story I heard from a woman named Aisha, who attended one of my talks in New York. Aisha was a refugee who had fled her war-torn country with her 2 children. She arrived in the U.S. with nothing but a suitcase and a heart full of hope. She told me, "Dr. Dyer, I used to think I was alone in this world, that no one cared. But then I started noticing the kindness of strangers, a neighbor who brought us food, a teacher who helped my kids learn English, a stranger who smiled at me on the bus. I realized that we're all connected, that we're all part of the same big family." Aisha's story moved me deeply because it reflects the truth that we are all sparks of the same divine light. When you live from that place of connection, you see the world differently. You see opportunities instead of obstacles, love instead of fear. You realize that who you are is not separate from others, you are part of the infinite whole. How can you live from that place of connection today? Maybe it's a kind word to a stranger, a moment of gratitude for the people in your life, or a choice to see the divine in everyone you meet. That's who you are, a being of love, connected to all that is. The truth revealed so. Who are you? You are not your past, your mistakes, or your fears. You are not your job, your bank account, or your reputation. You are a spiritual being, a piece of the divine source, here to create, to love, to grow, and to shine. You are resilience, as I learned in that orphanage. You are forgiveness, as I discovered at my father's grave. You are purpose, as David found in his community center. You are intention, as Maria showed with her son's miracle. You are love, as Michael Jackson lived through his music. You are wonder, as Tom rediscovered in his childlike spirit. And you are connection, as Aisha experienced in her new home. The truth of who you are is already within you. It's not something you need to find, it's something you need to remember. As I've said, you have everything you need for complete peace and total happiness right now. So, take a moment to close your eyes, place your hand on your heart, and feel that truth. Say to yourself, I am enough, I am divine, I am love. My friends, the journey of discovering who you are is a lifelong adventure, but it starts with this moment. Choose love over fear. Choose forgiveness over resentment. Choose purpose over doubt, and above all, choose to live as the divine being you are. When you do, you'll see miracles unfold, not just in your life, but in the lives of everyone you touch. Thank you for sharing this evening with me.